Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Talking with PB, where I, PB, talk with you about things in my mind, current events, and generally things I just want to talk about. And I seem to be really, really quiet right now, so if I'm quiet, I apologize. Um, so it's pretty late here, and I've already recorded one of these today, but it was fairly long, and I feel like I just rambled a little bit, and in between, like, then, I did that, like, right when I got home and after I ate, and I was feeling good about life, and then just, like, so much shit happened in, like, current events, and I just got very, very upset today, um, by just current events, and I'm not really gonna talk about it, because I want to go to bed after this, after I set this to render, so you guys have an episode of Talking with Booby for the first time in, like, a month. But yeah, I just sort of wanna not think about that right now and get very enraged because it is a very infuriating subject. So instead, I want to talk about an incident that happened last night. So I live in southern Texas, which means I live in the south of the United States. For those of you who, for somehow, some way, don't know where Texas is, even like I feel like everyone knows where Texas is, no matter what country you're from, as long as you have like a little bit of knowledge of the United States, you generally know where Texas is. You might not know exactly how large Texas is, but you generally know, the size and the shape because, there's just so many westerns, I guess, and just movies that talk about cowboys in Texas, and since we're very what is the word? Sort of like Texans are very nationalistic, even though it's a state. Like I feel a lot more people have a lot more faith in Texas than they do in the United States, which is why we always have idiot politicians claiming they want to secede from the Union, from the United States, because technically that's in our contract, but as is with several other states, it's not a unique, thing. But and we technically could. I mean, we're a major port city. It would be worse for, the United States than for us, but it's just not something that would work out, So, and like economically. Anyway, so I'm from the South, and when I went up to Ohio for school, I noticed a lot of differences. There's a lot of differences in like just the types of, animals, insects, plants. Like I had never seen a tulip. Because tulips don't grow down here. I've also never seen a firefly or a lightning bug, as some people just refuse to call it a firefly in some places. I had never seen one, although they do occur in Texas. I'm from like South Texas. I'm from near the coast, and fireflies don't go down this low. They generally like to stay in northern and central Texas. So I've never seen one of those until I went up to Ohio, and even then I didn't see that many because they're more of a like a summer thing, a summer, yeah, just generally a summer thing, and that's when I'm not in Ohio, wasn't in Ohio, so I saw like the occasional lightning bug, and that was like trippy. Even tulips are very trippy. Tulips to me they look fake. They look like plastic. And it's just, they just look not real. And I'm always very fascinated to, see that, oh my god, they're real. But another thing you guys have in, the Midwest in general, Ohio specifically, is that you don't have like dangerous insects. You don't have like fire ants or ants that bite you. You have tiny little black ants that like you don't even shake your head at or nod your head at. Like you don't even acknowledge those little ants unless they're trying to get to your food. And you have a lot of beetles, a lot of millipedes, centipedes. I have a friend who is in graduate school right now. He's an entomologist, which is the study of insects, and he specializes in millipedes. He loves millipedes. He does a lot of research on millipedes. So if you ever read like a recent paper about millipedes, it's probably my friend. If you're into that. But he's great. I don't understand the word of it, but I'm sure, he's a very intelligent man, and he's pretty cool. He's a pretty chill guy. So if you're ever in need of millipede research, it's out there. My friend is really working towards cataloging a lot of millipedes, I guess. I don't really know the issues in entomology, but I know there's a lot of it, like with cataloging and, putting out information about, the oh, like how do you identify different millipedes? I know very, very little about identification in, entomology. I know very little. I have two friends who are like entomologists, and I just know so little. Like, we're lucky I know anything at all about insect cataloging and just writing stuff down and things about insects. Anyway, so you have a lot of beetles, and notice I said insects. You have a lot of dangerous spiders that can kill you, but spiders are not insects. Insects, I believe, is purely for, oh god, is it arthropods? I don't know the scientific name for insects, but they only have 6 legs. So if you're talking about insects, they only have 6 legs. Arachnids, I think, is the overarching name for, spider things that have 8 legs. I think it's purely arachnid. Arachnid might only refer to spiders, and I don't know if there are other types of things with 8 legs that would fall under the name arachnid. I'm not sure. Like I said, I know so little. I've never taken a biology course that even talked about any insect other than a stupid fruit fly. So I know very little about it. So yeah, you guys don't have a lot of things that fly. You have like wasps and bees and, like mosquitoes and fruit flies and stuff like that. Or, oh, what do you guys call them? Like horse flies or something like that. But you guys don't have like other flying things. You generally, like, insects are generally harmless to you guys. Um, so that was sort of a culture shock because down in the south, everything is just terrible. Everything will probably bite you, and it won't kill you. Like, they're not generally venomous. It'll annoy you, and you'll have itchy. You'll have like the little red infected area or whatever. But generally things don't kill you. I mean, if it's a spider, I'd still probably get it checked out, but we don't have a lot of spiders that kill you down here in Texas. There's a black widow. I think black widows are a thing that exists down here. Now, if you go to Louisiana, that's a whole other story. Good luck, have fun. Good luck, have fun. It's like Australia. Louisiana might as well be the Australia of the United States because everything there is just terrifying. Um, and I feel like it's just like a congregation of everything that is horrible about all the southern states, all in Louisiana. And I think it's just because it's like below sea level. So, anyways, so yeah, I noticed that. So, for those of you who are from the Midwest or, the North in general, the farther south you get a lot more insects just that fly and they bite you and stuff like that. And they're a lot more aggressive. Maybe that's the correct word terminology for it. We have a lot more aggressive insects here. Like one example being fire ants. Fire ants, if you're a kid and you spend any time outside, you already know. All those ant mounds are probably fire ants, and they will bite you immediately. Like, you don't kick those mounds. Um, you don't mess with those mounds unless you are like throwing the what I don't know what they're called. like that little like the poison you throw down there and they carry down to the queen and it kills everything. Unless it's that. Um and I've actually become a sort of allergic to fire ant bites. Like before, I'd get the red itchy red spots when they bit me, but now like it like becomes infected and it's horrible. So I have to avoid them like the plague now, and it's just because I've been bitten so many times over a short time frame, because like just because I have a my room, like most rooms in houses, is against the wall. It's against two walls. I have a corner room, and so ant mounds would like sort of form alongside the wall of my house, and they would get into my room whether or not like there's any incentive for them to come into my room, like random pieces of crumb food things on the floor or somewhere. And so in my they would like crawl up my bed and they would bite me looking for food, and it was horrible. Like I had to like essentially I quote unquote moved out of my room and I like started sleeping in my parents' room, like because I couldn't sleep in my bed in my room because of all these ants. And it was just a really bad time. Even like if you went outside to kill them, it was like horrible looking for them in general, because they get tricky. They're smart little fuckers. Anyway, so one of the things we also have is something that my friends didn't believe me when I talked about it. I think they thought I was just like talking about a horror story or something. But we have flying cockroaches in the South, and I've noticed that cockroaches in Ohio, at least, probably this applies to most of the North, at least the Midwest. Your cockroaches don't fly; they're very small, and they look like beetles. I saw a cockroach, and I thought it was a beetle because it was so small. It was like almost black. And down here, at least in Texas, they are very large. They're very thick. They fly, and they're very like brown, almost like they're like red brown. And so I noticed a lot of your insects are black up north. Also, over here, I guess they're more red. Um, and I guess that's a telltale sign, right? That red means bad. And there is hail that they bite you, although I would have no experience because if I see a cockroach, I get out of dodge like immediately. I hate cockroaches. Like I have an irrational fear of cockroaches, actually. And it's not really spurred on by like any traumatic event in my life. It's really just so many like almost fake sounding horror stories I've heard about cockroaches. So I just have an irrational fear of them. And so in my room I have a corner desk. So where I sit is, the corner, and my TV is like my TV screen, computer screen is in the corner, and I have speakers behind it, and blah 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 blah. So I function in the corner because that's where you have the most area of space, and how this corner desk was optimized. And now the setup of my room is a rectangle. Think about it as a rectangle. Um, with the long, with two long sides, two short sides, and the door to my room is on my upper right. If you're imagining a rectangle, my door is in the upper right, and then following that long edge of the rectangle, on the upper left corner of my room is where I'm situated in my desk and stuff, and the where I face with my computer screen. The small, side of the rectangle right next to me is where my window lies. I have a window. And then along my lower left corner of the rectangle to like half to like well, it's not like directly on the corner. It has a little bit of space. So like in the middle of the other edge, like the opposite long wall, um in the middle of that is where my bed lies. and then I have a dresser, and I have a on the other short wall I have my closet. I have like a I don't know how to describe it. It's sort of like a closet that takes up the entire wall. Yeah. I don't know how else to describe it. It has like sliding doors and stuff. So basically I'm, on the opposite side of, the door in my room. And so I'm sitting here, it's nighttime, it's probably like 11 p.m. I'm chilling, and I see that Rooster Teeth, or the Let's Play channel Achievement Hunter, they have a new episode out of their GTA heist. And I'm like, oh, sweet. I'm lamenting the fact that I literally just finished eating, and I'm like, oh, now I don't get to eat and, have dinner and a show essentially. Or maybe it wasn't 11. It was probably earlier than 11 if I was eating. Probably like 9ish, 8, 9ish. And so I'm sitting here, I'm like super relaxed in my room, and one of the things about me is that whenever I see movement out of the corner of my eye, I always look at it. Like even with my ceiling fan, like random things will just like move in my room because of the airflow. And if I see something like move out of the corner of my eye, I'm always gonna look at it. It's just a habit of mine. I always look at something moving out of the corner of my eye because you never know what it is, right? And so I'm sitting here, I'm looking at my TV computer screen, and it's not that large. It's like I think 24, 26 inches. Because it's a TV. But it's small. It's a little thing. It's a little guy, a little LED TV. And right next to me, my window is not directly next. Well, I mean, it's directly next to me, but it's not next to my TV. What I have there is sort of like a canvas picture thing that's probably like 1 by 2 feet, and so out of the corner of my, and I recognize like it's thick. It's probably like an inch thick, so it has a shadow that is cast upon it by my ceiling fan's light. So um I saw something like flick. I'm like leaning back in my chair, my dining room chair. For those of you who don't know, I sit in a dining room chair, which is like solid wood. It's like really nice wood with like a blunt edge. You'll hear me talk about it every once in a while because I'll like slam like the meat of my arm against it, and I'll be like, oh god, that hurt. It's just like running into the side of a chair or a desk or something. It's that same exact, or like a dresser or whatever. It's that same exact pain. It's like you just like rammed into a really, really hard like wooden edge, and it's absolutely like super painful, but you have nothing to show for it. Maybe like a small bruise, but you have nothing to show for it other than your absolute pain of that indentation. Anyways, tangent. So I'm sitting here and I see something out of the corner of my left eye, and and as always, I just look over. Personally, I think, I thought it was just something like passing, because my ceiling fan, the little things that you pull down to, change the speed of the fan and the light switch, they're very high up, and even though I can reach them now because I'm an adult now, when I was younger I couldn't. So what my parents did is that they, those balloon, whenever, you go to, I don't know, some place that's selling, helium balloons, and they tie them to, your kid's wrists. You know that string? I don't know what that string is called. Well, not it's not string, it's that plastic string, that plastic thing that you also have in like gift wrapping and stuff like that. Well, my parents tied that to that, and because my ceiling fan is getting old, it's sort of wobbly, and sometimes that flickers, like that moves, that thing moves and casts a shadow, and it's just really quick because the ceiling fan moves quickly, so that thing moves quickly too. So that's what I personally thought what it was. I thought itself cast a shadow. So I'm, relaxed. I'm like, whatever. I see something move out of the corner of my eye, and I very like lazily look over, and I notice it's like think about like a 1 by 2 inch cockroach. It's very long, very thick, and I look at it for probably, I'd say half a second, maybe even less, like just long enough for me to register that it's a thing, it's not my imagination, and it's real. And you know how when you get scared by something or startled, you jump up, like you jump, um, because you get scared, and you jump up and then you come back down, just your natural reaction, because you get spooked. Well, what I did, because again I have an irrational fear for cockroaches, so I saw this cockroach and I looked over at it and I was just like, oh, and remember when I told you when I see a cockroach I get the hell out of Dodge? Like I will not be in the same room as a cockroach. I uh I jumped, and in like I didn't even have a chance to come down. My reaction time was so quick. Like I was still like on the peak of my up, um and I took advantage of my spooked already, reactionary up, that I used that to propel myself to get out of my chair. I even slammed the side of my arm into that blunt edge of the chair, almost like to like give myself some extra um just I don't know, like forward motion to like just get out of my room as quickly as possible. And probably between me seeing the cockroach and me being outside my room, probably took me like 2 seconds. Maybe even less. 2 seconds seems like a lot of time for me to stay in this room with that cockroach. It was probably like between 1.5 and 2 seconds to see cockroach and leave. Like I didn't pause the video, I didn't do anything. I got out of here. And and then I go to my mom and I'm like, Mom, there's a cockroach in my room. And she's like super calm about it because it was like for her it's NBD. She's been dealing with cockroaches her entire life. Like she doesn't care. And she's like, oh well, what are we gonna do about that? And I'm like, meanwhile I'm here like huffing and puffing, heart and adrenaline are just pumping because I'm just like it's like I just had this, a huge scare because in my head it was really close to me. And technically it is. It's probably like 2 feet away from me. But it's still pretty far away. But too close for my comfort. I don't like I said, I don't like being in the same room as a cockroach because they fly and they move very quickly. Things move quickly when they fly. That's the point of them evolving to have wings. And so I I go to my mom and she's like, well, what are we gonna do? And I'm like, well, I'm hoping you'll kill it. That's what I'm hoping you'll do. And so I walk back into my room as she goes to get the Raid in the kitchen. Raid being just like a bug spray specialized to kill cockroaches. And also fire ants, coincidentally. And, so I walk back into my room very, very, like, cautiously and ready to leave immediately. Like, probably imagine if you've ever seen a cat afraid of something and slowly approaching it to be like, what the F is this thing? And, like, I'm fully on caution and just like, they're so ready to react to get out. Like, that's the exact same thing. Like, every, like, muscle in my body was super tense, ready to, like, get out. And so I'm in my room and I'm like, okay, I'm staying as far away from my desk area and the wall where I saw the cockroach as possible. And now the thing about my room is that I have a checkerboard wall. So I have very large. I think it's 16 by 16 inches if I remember correctly when I painted it. They're 16 by 16 inch just blocks of white and then black and white and black in a checkerboard pattern. And so I saw this cockroach in between the black and the white on my wall. So, and my entire desk is painted black. And everything is pretty much black on my desk, minus a couple of things. And my desk is probably the worst place to, fight a cockroach because it's just so cluttered. Because it's just so many things. Like I said, it's my main workspace. And, yeah, so I'm just staying as far away from this because I can't see the cockroach. I don't have my glasses. My glasses are on my desk, and I'm not getting near my desk. And so I walk into my room like super cautious, like ready to GTFO, staying as far away from this wall as possible. And And so I'm like, okay, what can I do to optimize, my room for my mother to most easily, kill this cockroach? And I'm like, okay, let me turn off my ceiling fan because, like I said, the little fuckers fly, and the wind, you know, being created by my ceiling fan is going to affect that if it starts flying, and it will cause it to go into an odd trajectory. So I turned that off. And then I'm like, okay, let me make sure, there's not a lot of stuff on the ground in case, it decides to run off rather than fly off. Or, wherever it touches down, my mom has, the best opportunity to kill it. And my backpack is on the floor, and it's on my lower right, side of the room, where near my dresser and on the side of my bedpost. So I'm just like, and coincidentally, my trash can is also over there. So whenever I throw something, I have to throw it literally across the room to throw it away. And naturally, everything is not aerodynamic enough to get over there. No matter what I do, it's not aerodynamic enough to get over there. And I chew five gum. And for those of you who don't chew five gum, a lot of the React series of chew gum has black um gum wrapper paper. So, and I have a red and like it's like a maroon burgundy colored shag carpet. So, you can imagine you see the black, but it's sort of, it blends because it's a good color. And a lot of things in my room are black, including a lot of splotches on the ground from ink, paint, really just a lot of things over the years that have been black that just have fallen on the ground and have stained the carpet. And so I noticed, two gum wrappers on the floor next to my backpack, and I'm just like, I'll pick them up in a second. Let me just pick up my backpack. And I noticed them when I walked in because I was super hyper aware of everything that was black and on the ground because, naturally I thought it was a cockroach. And I was ready to move, like get out the moment I saw anything move. So I grab my backpack and I see one of the wrappers run away, and I freak the hell out because this was even closer than when it was like right like 2 feet away from me. This time it was like less than a foot away from my foot. And what I do, I see it run away. I throw my backpack on the ground, and I'm out. I get out, and I run into my mom who's walking towards my direction, and I'm like, okay, I know where it is. I just saw it. It's near the bins because I also have bins over there, like storage bins, storage containers. Um, and I'm just like, it was over there. It was near the dresser. I saw it run. I picked up my backpack. It was right there. It's right near my backpack. Because I threw it back on the ground in my fear. And so I direct her towards there, but just due to the nature of where my ceiling fan light is, there's a lot of shadows that are caused in my room, especially in that corner of my room because I have my bed there, which blocks off a lot of things, and then my storage bins. So there's just a lot of darkness in that corner. And so we recently bought these small little cheap like $1-2 LED flashlights, and my mom keeps one in the glove compartment of our car. So I'm like, I'm walking over there into the garage, and I yell out to my mom. I'm just like, "Be careful, it flies." Because in the time it took me to run out of my room, tell my mom, and come back into my room, it was probably a total of like 20 seconds. And for it to have traversed like from my wall all the way to the other side of my room on the ground, it had to have flown. Otherwise, because nothing moved when I entered the room. That gum wrapper that I was actually the roach didn't move the entire time I was there until I picked up my backpack. So, so I tell her, be careful, it flies, because they don't all fly, not all roaches fly. I don't know if it's just like they're in development, like when they're young they can't fly, and when they're older they can. or something like that, or maybe some of them are, or maybe wings are a mutation, or maybe not having wings is a mutation, or maybe they get damaged. I don't know the specifics about cockroach life, but sometimes they fly, sometimes they don't. But you can never, be too careful. But just based on the timeline and the locations I saw it, it was safe to assume it flew. So I yelled to my mom, it flies, but I got no response. She was very, focused in finding this thing. And so I finally go get the flashlight and I tell her, um, and then I tell her again, just in case she didn't hear me again. And she said, and I told her, yeah, it flies. And I'm like, here's the flashlight. And she's like, no, 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 yeah, I know. And she's like very quickly spraying something on a vacuum cleaner. I'm like outside the door, like I'm trying not to enter my room, and so I hand her the flashlight, like stretching my entire 5'10" body, to give this to her and to be the least amount in my room as possible. And she's spraying something on our vacuum cleaner, and it turns out because she told me, I know, and it turns out it's because the cockroach flew from wherever it was hiding into my closet, on the vacuum cleaner, and then my mom sprayed it with Ray, but it ran off because it was like I said, it was a large thing. It was like a 1 by 2 inch, and it's probably like 1 inch thick also. It was fairly large. It's one of the larger ones I've seen, not the largest, but one of the larger ones, and it ran farther into my closet, and my mom's like, oh, give me the flashlight, give me the flashlight. So I hand it to her, and she looks inside, and she can't find it. And I noticed that, it was a smart cockroach, which is probably why it survived as long as it did to become as large as it has. Um, and I noticed that it will only, move if it thinks nothing will hurt it, which is natural, just animal instincts. And so I tried to like keep my mom from like searching through things and moving things because I knew it wasn't gonna move if she did that. And so finally she stopped moving things, and I'm trying to convince her to stay in there to make sure, she kills it. And then she sees it closer to, my shoe pile, and and she reacts by taking off her her sandal, and smacking it, but on my carpet it did nothing other than probably annoy it. And so it ran back into my shoe pile. And my mom was like, well, I'm pretty sure it's gonna die. It was already like, it didn't even have like the ability to fly. It was so like dead. But like I saw her jump because she had my door like half open, half closed. Um, and I couldn't see like into my room very well, but I could see her reaction, and I saw her jump, and I was out. I was out of the room. And the reason she went for her chancla or sandal, chancla is Spanish for sandal, is because she didn't have the raid can anymore. Like she had walked out and she came back in, and she was like, "Give me the raid can, give me the raid can." And I'm like, "What do you mean, give me the raid can? I'm like on the other side of the house by now." I'm like Usain Bolt fast when it comes to cockroaches. And so I come back and I very cautiously give it to her, and she's like, "Well, it's gone now." And she's like, "Well, I'm pretty sure it's dead, or it's at least going to die in there." And so I proceed to spend like the next hour and a half outside of my room with my door open. I hang out with my mom for an hour and a half, avoiding my room as much as possible. Because it wasn't dead, It was probably still moving around, and I did not want to be in the room because my shoe pile on my in my closet is the closest section of my closet to my door. So if it came out, I would be effectively trapped in here, and that's not a position I wanted to put myself in. And so I spend like an hour and a half, and finally I bite the bullet, and I come back into my room. I don't turn on my ceiling fan because my ceiling fan makes a bunch of noise. You guys can't really hear it it doesn't really get picked up by my microphone, which is awesome. But it is loud, and it does, obscure a lot of sound. So well, not too much. Like you, it's like a white noise now, but it would, it would move things in my room because obviously wind, a lot of paper in my room, it would move things, and I'm super hyper aware of everything that moves in my room and makes noise. So I left it off, and I just sit at my desk, and I'm like, I try and get comfortable and like not terrified of a cockroach, walking by me or walking towards me. And then, like, probably an hour or two later, my mom comes in and she's like, don't worry about the cockroach anymore. Somehow it went from your room into the bathroom, which is right next to my room, which is not, a preposterous, like, distance away. And she's like, somehow he made it into the bathroom and died right next to the toilet. Um, and I was just like, what? And she was like, yes, it's, I walked in to go to the bathroom and I just see this cockroach legs up dead. And I was like, well, yep, no longer have to worry about that. Because one of my greatest fears is, like, with cockroaches, is stepping on one, like barefoot or with a shoe. It just terrifies me. It's like up there with the worst possible things that could ever happen to me. Um, and yeah, so that's my cockroach story. That happens. I have a bunch of cockroach stories. It comes with the territory, I just have a bunch of them. If you saw my tweet, I put out a tweet, I think yesterday or the day before. I don't really remember when it happened. It's such a traumatizing event. I think it was yesterday. I put out a tweet that was like, I'm gonna have to move to a state that doesn't have cockroaches in it, just, for my mental sanity, for my sanity, and for my heart. And it was a lot more, I had a lot more colorful language on my personal Twitter. I was like, blah, 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 blah. I was very, very upset with things. Almost as upset as I was with today's current event. So angry. I'm still very angry, and I'm gonna be angry until, you know, things change. Because right now we're in a perpetual cycle that is can't be broken because we're not doing anything. It's like sort of when you do a science experiment, and you always make sure to only have one or two, maybe three at most variables that all affect different things to see, which one of them does a certain thing or affects, a certain or the experiment. It's just like that. But right now everything is a control and we're not changing any variables. So it's a very frustrating situation that is happening in the United States right now. Let's see. Anything else I want to speak about before I sign off? I know I talked about something else. Oh, I want to write a fan fiction. I want to write, for those of, I guess I should explain fan fiction. Fan fiction, for those of you who don't know, fan fiction is basically a fiction written by a fan, as the name might suggest. To be more specific, a fan fiction, it's basically a story, a fan of a certain TV show, book, series, just book in general, movie, anime, really anything that has a narrative, you can write a fan fiction about. And what someone would write about is maybe just rewrite sort of how things went down, maybe put people different characters in a relationship that weren't in the original series, maybe put them in a different situation but with the same personality, maybe the same situation of the narrative but with different personalities, um and maybe they're in a different place, maybe they're in a different time period, same personality is just different situation. Maybe they meet in different ways. There's a whole. It's like sort of a writing clutch where you don't have to come up with an entire storyline, and you have these amazing, characters that people already know, so you don't really have to describe them. You don't have to go through that whole initial introductory part of a story with fan fiction in general. Some people still do it, but it's not really necessary if you don't, go OOC or make, change up their personality like drastically. And yeah, so that's generally what fan fiction is, and there's a whole bunch of things, like it's a whole culture now. I remember when it was first starting out. I mean, people have been doing it forever, but there was a website called, coincidentally, fanfiction.net. That was a small little thing back in the day, and now it's really big. It's huge. It's like one of the leading fan fiction websites, along with Archive of Our Own, which is also an up and coming thing. I say up and coming. It's not really, but it's still in beta, so technically it is. But it's been around for a very long time. Not as long as fanfiction.net, but it's been around for a while. So if you're ever interested in it's sort of like a good thing for series that have ended already, or series that you weren't completely satisfied with the ending. Like, you're probably not alone in feeling that, and you can probably find a lot of things. Or if you're like, I can't believe those two characters never got together, or I can't believe um this happened. Probably someone has done a revision of it and written their own twist on it. There's a whole bunch of just different twists that you can do, and some series naturally are more popular than others. Like Harry Potter, I think, is the one of the most one of the fan fiction topics, I guess, that has the most stories written about it. Like, I go on there and there are still like new stories popping up every single day. There's probably like a page or two of just new stories popping up, and stories that are being updated probably goes even farther. And it blows my mind sometimes, really, that it's just growing all the time. Anyway, so I'm thinking of writing one. I haven't tried to write a fan fiction in probably, oh god, probably like 10 years. At least 10 years. At, well, no, at least like 6 years. At most 12 years, 10 years. How old am I? I'm 21. Well, let's say 22 for the sake of time, because I'm about to turn 22 anyways. So 22, 10 years, 12. Yeah, so like 10, 9, 8 through 10 years. So it's between 6 and 9 years, let's say. I haven't written a fan fiction, or tried to. I've never finished one. I'm very flaky in that way. But I was on my Tumblr and I saw, I'm in the Carmilla fandom, if you guys weren't aware or were not on the channel for when I was super obsessed with Carmilla, which I still am. It's just, in the on the off time between first and second season. And now that they've confirmed the second season, like, there's nothing to like really fret about. I'm not really in the Carmilla fan fiction fandom. I don't really read that fan fiction because I'm 100% happy with the story, and I don't feel the need to read a Carmilla fan fiction to sort of fill that void. Like, I'm very happy with where it is, and I don't want to like forget the original narrative because I read a really, really well written fan fiction. Because Jesus Christ, I've read a lot of fan fictions that are written by people who do writing as a living, who are actual authors, and I've read some really, really good fan fiction in my lifetime. There's just a lot of good ones, and in my certain fandoms, I've read a lot of the good ones, and it really just blows my mind. Anyway, so I'm not a good writer, and let's just put it that way. I'm not that good of a writer. But I have the thing is that I'm not a good writer, but I have amazing ideas. Like, I just have an amazing imagination. I just have a really good imagination. So I come up with great concepts all the time, and it's really a shame that I can't write. I see more. It's because I see it more than I think about the words. Like, I'd probably be better in film if I were interested in that. I'd probably be better in filming things than I would writing a script, Like, I'd be able to map something out. Like, I don't know how you do it in film or anything, but I'd probably be able to like fill a room with stuff and like direct people to do things based off of the narrative rather than actually write the narrative. I find that to be a very difficult thing. It's just details. I sort of want to get to the point right away, and I understand that details sort of make the story or like make it even more amazing. And I find details to be very tedious to write, and I don't really understand how to write details well, or at least I didn't. I don't really know now. I haven't attempted to write really anything story with a storyline in a very long time. Anything that didn't require MLA or APA format, I really haven't written. But the other day I was scrolling down my Tumblr and I saw someone make a fan art being art made by a fan for a certain, fandom. Fandom just means like the community behind a certain narrative essentially. And in this case, it was the Carmilla fandom. And yeah, and I saw this really well made like little poster like logo like a poster picture thing. And it was a drawing of Carmilla in the Pacific Rim AU. AU standing for Alternative Universe, which is like I said, just a different setting um for a fan fiction or whatever. It's just a different setting and a different world sort of you can put them in and do your own thing with the characters. And I saw it and I was like, oh my god. Because for those of you who don't know, which I don't think any of you know, I don't think I've mentioned it before, but I love Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim is one of my favorite original movies, and it's written by it's not written. It was directed by Guillermo del Toro. And if you guys are a fan of Guillermo del Toro, you can expect a lot from Pacific Rim if you haven't watched it. It was really, really good. I mean, the narrative, but man, the world was freaking amazing. I love the world. The world building, the storyline, the lore, it was amazing. And I was very shocked to find out that Pacific Rim is an original work. It's not like a pre-existing anime or a pre-existing manga, which is pretty much an Eastern comic book essentially. And I was very shocked to find that out because when you watch the movie, it's sort of like you're looking into just a time, like you're looking in a snapshot of this world. Like you just sort of come into this world at this certain time when the world is ending or whatever. But there's like an entire before, when things started, the entire middle. We just sort of show up at the end, and so for you to get that feeling in the movie or in anything, you get that feeling of this world is immense and so much. It's what I imagine Star Wars to sort of feel like. I've never watched Star Wars. I'm so sorry, guys. Don't like kill me. But I imagine that's what it's like. That you sort of come into this world with so much lore and background that there's this entire world outside of this small little spaceship or whatever Star Wars takes place. And I'm so sorry, guys. I have never watched it. I still really apologize. And so I imagine that's what it's like. I imagine that's a good comparison. And so, and for those of you who don't know the premise of Pacific Rim came out in, I think 2013, 12, 13. I know I went to the theaters and I watched it with my friends, so it was probably 2013. Or maybe it was 2012. Honestly, I don't remember. Maybe it was even earlier than that. But it was so basically Pacific Rim. It's a kaiju movie. A kaiju, being I think Japanese. I think it's Japanese. Might be Chinese, but it sounds like a Japanese word. Kaiju stands for great beast or monster, I think. And an example of a very famous kaiju is Godzilla. Godzilla is a kaiju. So you can imagine what type of beast and what our antagonist or whatever is in this movie. And so basically these kaijus come out of a breach in the Pacific Ocean, and they come up and they are huge and they're destroying everything. And it takes a lot to kill them. Like, the only way, the army figured out how to kill it was to drop a nuke on them. Although in the movie it says it took 6 days for them to take it down. They retconned that in the comic that came out afterwards, where it was on that same day that they killed it. So I don't know if that's just a lie in the comic or if it's an actual retcon. I feel like it's a retcon. Retcon is oh, what is the, it's retro continuity, retro something continuity, or maybe it's just retro continuity. And basically it's when you change the narrative or you change something to fit this new concept. Like, for example, in the movie they said 6 days, in the comic they said one day in that same day. In fact, it was probably only a couple of hours. Anyway, so what was I saying? Yeah, and so after like 4 of these beasts showing up after, I don't know, probably like 2 years, they finally, decided that it wasn't gonna stop and they needed, something to defeat this. And so they started the Jaeger program, and Jaeger is German for Dragon Slayer, I believe. And Jaegers are this huge mech. And for those of you who don't know what a mech is, imagine a very large robot. Imagine like Power Ranger, Transformer, large robot. But robots are technically in charge of themselves. They're artificial intelligence, and therefore they move themselves. So think more Power Rangers, where you control the actions of this mechanism, this mech. And so as you can imagine, they're as large as a kaiju, as tall as them. So or imagine Godzilla scale wise. So they're huge mechs. And the only way to be piloted, you pilot it with essentially your brain. You're in sync with the machine using your brain. Although you also have to, be physically moving things to, because it can, whatever. And so not, one person can't pilot it on their own because it's too much neural load for your, it's just too much neural load. It's too much for your brain. And essentially you seize up and, you stop controlling the Jaeger, and essentially, as an indirect causation of you seizing and losing control of this mech, you die. You don't directly die because of the Jaeger, but by you losing control of your body, you probably fall and die. So what they did is that 2 people have to pilot it, but you have to be compatible. You have to be drift compatible. When you enter the mech and you start using your brain, you enter a drift, and it's just with your brain. You're like still here. It's not anything like supernatural. You just you just share sort of a brain with this mech, and so you need a second person, and the best way to pilot this is to pilot it with someone you have a good compatibility with, outside of the mech. You have to, understand each other essentially. You have to understand what's up, what's happening. It's better if you have a good bond, if if you're brothers, if you're, married, siblings, whatever. Those make the best, for drift compatibility. And so yeah, and so when you enter the drift, you essentially enter each other's brains, and you essentially share each other's thoughts when you're in the drift. Because that's just how it works. And so that's a very interesting concept, all in and of its own, in my opinion. So if you guys have never watched Pacific Rim, and you really, really, really would like to see mechs beating the shit out of kaiju, and you just want to see some very visually impressive FX, um, that's the movie for you. It's so amazing. Like, even though a lot of it is done in the dark and when it's raining because CG, they make it look so good. It's just such a beautiful movie. Like I said, plot not the most interesting thing in the world. It's very predictable, but it's a it's a great mech beating the shit out of kaiju movie. And yeah, so and I became like I saw it, and like I said, I'm very interested in drift compatibility, or the drift in general. I think that's such an interesting like just so interesting. It's one of the more unique things I've ever read in for a sci-fi thing, and probably not original, but like I said, in just my limited knowledge of sci-fi, it's very, very interesting. And this entire world is very, very interesting, to be honest. Like I said, it's the thing that really attracts me to any story, to any book series, to any series at all. If you have a very rich lore and a very rich world, I'm very, very interested. Like, I trudged my way reading the Divergent series by Veronica Roth, I believe. I really hated the story, but the world that Veronica Roth built was so amazing. I trudged through all three books because I needed to know what happened, and I needed to know more about the world because I found the world to be so fascinating. And even to the end, it was so fascinating. But just the plot and the romance, it was just so ugh. I was over it immediately. I was over it like in the first book, and then it became like the star in the second and third book, and I was just like, why do YA editors and just and publishers just want romance? Because you could tell in the book that that was not supposed to be the main focus of the book, because like I said, the world is very rich, and no one writes a very rich world for a shitty romance. You know? So it was very frustrating to read those books and knowing that she probably well, I assume it's a she, it could be a he. The author wrote it. Oh man, it was just very frustrating. But like I said, just for the world, I loved it, which is probably why I loved Harry Potter so much, and why I loved Twilight in the beginning. And is there any other book? I haven't read Game of Thrones yet. I own the first book, I just haven't read it yet, and I'm not going to read it until the series is over, the TV series is over, and the hype has died down a lot. Like I'll probably read it a year or two after the series ends, because I'll probably read it when the book comes out, to be honest. When George R. R. Martin finally finishes the last book, that's when I'll probably start reading the first book, because right now I live in a blissful ignorance where I don't know anything about Game of Thrones. You can tell me all the spoilers you want, but I don't understand who any of these people are or their significance in the world or anything at all. Like, I know there's Starks. I know there's a Joffrey. Was that his name? I know there's a really awesome female. Well, some really awesome female um characters. There's some very annoying male characters. There's something called a Red Wedding. There's Natalie Dormer. There is Lena Hadley, who plays an amazingly horrible person in this movie, in this show, in the book series, which I'm very excited to find out more about. There's Peter Dinklage. Is that his name? Dinklage? Who's an amazing actor. So I'm anxious to watch his performance of this. And yeah, that's about all my knowledge that has stuck with me. I know there's a Red Wedding. Who knows what the fuck that means? Joffrey dies. Big whoop. Everyone dies in this stupid series, so I don't know why that was such a big deal. Other than the fact he was a little shit. And that's about it. Like, nothing else I know anything about. I know the Starks get really screwed over, and that's about it. So I don't think that's too much into spoiler territory in for Game of Thrones, and I'm not interested in learning anything more. Like I said, you could tell me all you want about Game of Thrones, but I've turned on the switch in my head where it goes through one ear and another. I don't remember any names. I hear names all the time, and I'm like, I'm never gonna remember that name. Oh, Brienne of Tarth, that's one of them. I know that because I watched Jesse Cox, who is an LPer, and he is a big fan of the show, and he named his computer, one of his computers, Brienne, because of Brienne of Tarth. Anyway, so yeah, so because I find drift compatibility to be such an interesting concept in Pacific Rim. The moment I saw that, I saw the fan art was about Carmilla as a dressed as a Jaeger pilot, and I think Laurel was in the background. I'm not 100% sure, but I saw it and I'm like, that's such an interesting concept. If you make Carmilla being a vampire. If you guys don't know what Carmilla is about, Carmilla is a web series based off of the novella by J. Sheridan LaFontaine, something like that. I think Sheridan LaFontaine, something like that. Um, LaFondue, actually, I think it's J. Sheridan LaFondue. I think that's the name. Um, of a novella of the same name, Carmilla, and it was the original vampire story. I believe it was written 80 years before Dracula was written, but Dracula gets all of the all the attention. Carmilla, you probably recognize from a lot of lore, probably. Um, if you guys are into vampire stuff, as being a very famous first vampire. Yeah. What do I? Yeah, yeah. So I find it very interesting because Carmilla in the web series and in the book is well in the web series I don't know about in the book is 200 years old essentially more or less. I don't know exactly how old, but around about 200 years old. And how interesting would that be? Because when you get into the drift, you see all of the other person's memories. There are no secrets. If you think of something, you know, it'll the other person will think of it also, or see it happening in their head. So there are no secrets in the drift. And I think it would be so fascinating to have a vampire sort of, a 200-year-old vampire going into this Jaeger to, defeat the apocalypse. I think that's just such an interesting concept, and so much can be done with that. That I've started doing research because just as any person who is older and not a young child understands the importance of research, and I've bought and downloaded Pacific Rim and I have it on my computer. I've watched it probably like 5 times already. I have also bought and downloaded no I yeah bought and downloaded no. I bought the bought and downloaded, who am I? The Pacific Rim comic, because they came out with a comic which is essentially a prequel. It is about K-Day, or the day the first kaiju hit in San Francisco, coincidentally. Well, not really coincidentally, but it's where it landed. The first kaiju attacked there. And yeah, it's all about that. It's very interesting. It's like 50 something pages long. It's by Legendary Comics, and there's gonna be a second comic coming out, which is sort of like I said, the movie is at the end. This is like describing the very beginning, and they say that the second comic, the one that's about to come out, is gonna be in the middle. So I'm very anxious to read that. I'm so anxious to just learn about more about this world. I just want more content. Like if they wrote a book, I'd read it immediately. It's like I'm like on Star Wars level of obsession with this series, to be honest, because the world is just so amazing in my head. There's just so much lore that even the writers of the series of Pacific Rim who came up with the idea have so much lore, and I'm just like, can I just like have it? Can I just have your storyboard with all your lore like in its raw form? Like I'll sort through it. I just want to know more. Especially when it's, there's so much actual like fact in this in the world. I want, like, I can imagine up my own lore, because I've been given, seeds of a lot of things. I can come up with my own ideas as to, what happened in the middle times, but I just be so interested to know the actual facts and, what they came up with. And ugh, I'm just so amazed that I keep forgetting that Pacific Rim was a movie I loved. Like, drifting is something that, because I find that to be such an interesting concept, is something that I remember all the time. Pacific Rim itself, I don't remember all the time. Unless I'm thinking about, like, if you guys didn't like Transformers, Pacific Pacific Rim is probably for you. Probably I haven't watched any of the Transformer movies, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, but I know that they have way more awesome looking mechs in this movie, and it's just, it's so amazing. I love it. It's one of my favorite movies. Just by the concept itself, and so yeah, I think the concept of writing this story mixed in with the Carmilla lore would be so interesting. And I don't have it all in my head. I've been doing a lot of research about it, about Pacific Rim in general, because that's the one I know the least amount about. Carmilla won't be that difficult. It'll just take time. It's like it'll take me the same amount of time to watch that also. And I sort of want to catch it before the second season comes out, because if not, I'm gonna have to, like, there's gonna be so many facts that I'm just gonna have to record. I'm gonna change a lot of things also. So I don't know. Maybe it won't matter. I don't know. I'm debating. Like, I'm still thinking it over. Like I said, I want to write it because I have, like, all these possible ideas in my head, just going around thinking. I think about it before I go to bed. I'm just like, oh, how would this work? How would that work? Like, I keep getting little snippets of things to see if it'll work. I don't know if I'll write it. If anything, it's at least something I'll figure out in my head. And I'll have a great story in my head. I'll have a fun narrative in my head that I don't fully flesh out, but at least it'll be there. But yeah, that's all I have to talk about today. I know it was a little bit longer than usual, but considering it's the first one in probably a month, I decided to make it a little bit long. A lot of interesting things happen. I told you all about my cockroach story, which is really the most interesting thing that's happened to me in probably the past month or two. And yeah, so thank you guys for watching. Oh, wait, me. I have to ask you guys a question first. For those of you who don't know, I always ask you guys a question because I want to make this more of a conversation than it is now. It feels very one-sided because it is, but I like communicating with you guys, so I always like asking you guys a question that was redundant. I'm sorry. And so my question of the day is, what is the last book you read? I don't know if I've asked you guys that one before, but maybe it's changed since last time. The last book I read was probably, I think it was the color code, something like that. I don't know. It's not really a self-help book. It's sort of like a personality book that I heard someone talk about, and I thought it was very interesting. It didn't tell me anything I didn't know, but I could see it being something to make some people who aren't self-aware become more self-aware. So I recommend it if you're not very self-aware about your personality, or you don't understand your personality or how you work with others. Or if you don't understand how someone can be this personality type that's so drastically different than yours, I'd recommend the book. It's pretty good. I think it's The Color Code. Um, I think that's the last book I technically read. I didn't like read it all. I skipped a lot of the sections that weren't about my colors, which are primarily red, with a little bit of blue. I think it was almost half and half, but with a lot more red. So not too much red, but not, a lot of blue. And pretty much yellow and white were essentially non-existent. I had a little bit of it, but not too much. and I'm perfectly fine. I know my personality were the red and blue traits. I know that. I knew that. I'm fairly self-aware about that kind of thing. But it was cool. The actual narrative book I've read was The Maze Runner, and I read that, and I think I talked about it. I went to go see The Maze Runner with my friends, and I read that the night before the movie premiered, and I went out with my friends to go watch it. So between like 1 a.m. and 6 p.m. I read the entire book. And it's not a short book, guys. It was a fairly long book. I didn't think it was going to be so long, which is why I started reading it at 1 a.m. It's because I debated with myself. I was like, am I going to read this before I go out? No, I won't read it. Yeah, I'll read it. No, I won't read it. And I had it and as in ebook form, and I decided to read it at 1 a.m. and I read it. So it was an okay book. I'm not gonna read the others. My friends are obsessed with the books. But it didn't really grasp me. There wasn't because essentially, well, I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but the world building is not that interesting to me. Maze Runner is based on a dystopian future, as many YA things are now. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. You might enjoy it. I personally didn't, but that's just me. I'm weird like that. The book was fine. I was okay with the book. I thought the book was a lot better than the movie. But as you know, it's just how the thing goes. It's just how the cookie crumbles, ball rolls, whatever. So yeah, so let me know down below what the last book you read was. I'd be interested to know and get a couple of book recommendations. I haven't, like I said, I last read The Maze Runner when it came out, and I think it's already gone to DVD. And the second one's getting close to coming out also. So it's been a while. It's probably been like almost a year, maybe 6 months. I read a lot of fan fiction, which should count as books because some of those things super long. I only like reading the long ones. So okay, correction. I like reading the ones that are done. I've read enough unfinished fan fictions for a lifetime, so I only like reading the done ones, and the ones that are done are very long. At least the ones I look for. My settings are, I think it's 10K plus. I think that's 10 or 20K plus words. 20 or 10,000 words or more is what I look for. And that's because I've already read most of the 100 word ones. So yeah, in my fandoms at least, not all of them, just in my fandoms, or my shipping fandom, if you're curious, it is Dramoni, it is Cadley, it is Becloe, and Spashly, Naomi, and I think that's all. I think those are the only ones I follow avidly. Right now, I'm back on the Harry Potter kick, so I have to rotate because otherwise I finish up all the content in one fandom, and not like I finish reading them faster than more come out, so I have to rotate between them. And some of them I made the mistake of reading an unfinished story, so I have to wait for people to update their chapters. So yeah, this is going way longer than it's supposed to. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or comments about anything I talked about today, just let me know down below. I like talking to you guys and answering your questions. If you have any suggestions as to what I could do for talking with PB, for example, what game you guys might like to see in the background, just let me know. Right now, you are watching Sanctum. I don't have enough time to record another game. Probably. I don't know. I don't think I deleted my Sanctum video. I might have though. So we'll see. Maybe you're seeing like Borderlands, or maybe it's Dota. Maybe I'm recording a Dota game. But just last second. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to be nice to each other. Don't forget to be compassionate, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!